everyone. It's Michael from YouSpeak, and we are so excited for another episode of the Speak Real podcast. We will be sharing one-on-one conversations with our youth speakers about their stories and lessons that they have learned through their life experience. We believe that storytelling is the best way to empower youth and give them the platform to find their voice. Today, I'm here with Alex to talk about his journey and his struggles that he has faced in terms of mental health. So, Alex is one of our youth speakers. He has an incredible story of strength and courage and inspires so many people with it. He recently got offered to play on a very prestigious hockey team, and if that's not enough, he also studies aerospace engineering. So, Alex, I am super excited for this podcast, and I'm happy to be talking with you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. It's awesome to be doing it with you, and it's good to see a friendly face to do the first one.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. I'm super excited. So why don't we jump right into it? I've heard your story before, but I want to give everyone else a chance to hear it as well. So why don't you go ahead and take us on your journey and tell us what your story is all about.
Yeah, for sure. So I remember from as early as I can remember, I couldn't really recognize how I felt. I couldn't understand if I was angry, if I was sad, if I was frustrated, or even happy sometimes. I just couldn't really figure out emotion the same way that other people could. And the only real emotion that ran my life was anger. I was angry a lot of the time. And it wasn't regular anger. It was just rage. I didn't know what I was angry at that age, but it drove my life for a long time. And I remember I was always very eccentric. So what that means is I was very loud. I had a big personality. I talked with my hands. And some people didn't really understand the way I talked, and I always talked very properly. Um, and people didn't always understand or were kind of mean to me. And I remember I loved, from as early as I can remember, as well, I loved hockey. And it was all I would talk about. So I'm sure, like, on the playground, some people love hockey, some people don't. I tended to hang out with the people who didn't love hockey as much as I did, unfortunately. So it got a little bit annoying. So essentially, it was like I was poking them, but with my words. And it was difficult for me to understand because I thought everyone loved hockey. I thought everyone thought like me. Thought everyone wanted to watch the games every single day, but I found out later that not everyone loved it as much as I did. So I went through a lot of my school years getting bullied. People weren't really nice to me. And there were a lot of times where I felt like I was alone. My mom used to have to pick me up from school because people were just being mean to me and I couldn't take it. So eventually there was a time where uh, I remember it was around high school age. I was going up to the classroom and I saw someone that I knew from my classes. And my friend told me, they're going by this name now. And he wants to be referred to as a boy. And this was a pivotal time in my life because at that point, I didn't know what transgender was. And I was also born biologically female. So with this new word under my hand, I went and I researched and I learned and I figured out maybe this is why I've been so angry my whole life. Maybe this is why I felt something's been really wrong, but I haven't been able to pinpoint it. And I remember I talked to my parents and they said, and uh, essentially they just said, yeah, that's cool. Let us do what we can to help you. And I think that combined with my love of hockey really pulled me out of the dark times. If I didn't have my family, I had teachers, I had principals, I had so many people that cared about me. And all it took was reaching out to those people and saying, hey, I think maybe this might be something to look into for me and see a doctor about. And it turns out my inkling was right. And that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have talked to people about it. And since that point, I've just grown and grown and grown as a person. I've worked really hard to keep myself happy and keep myself active. And the words still hurt from time to time. Don't get me wrong. There's stuff that doesn't go away by itself. But reaching out and talking to my parents throughout that time, and my partner and my friends has been incredible and really helps me. So for me, my story is more so about being someone who doesn't really fit in, but finding people regardless of that. My friends now, even though they don't like hockey, I've my best friend loves politics. We'll sit on the couch and we'll talk for hours about politics. Um, so I've learned to adapt to people who don't love what I love, but I haven't lost my love of the game. Obviously, I'm still playing. Um, so it's been a really crazy, interesting journey throughout my life, and I've learned a lot.
Yeah, I mean, wow. Well, first of all, thank you for that story. And I know it's not easy telling your story, especially when some parts of it are can be very emotionally heavy. Um, but I want to go back and dissect a few things in your story. So, first of all, just to be clear, what do you identify as?
So I identify as transgender male, which is female to male. So I was born female, and I've had to undergo procedures to become who I felt like I was on the inside,
Okay, okay,
which is male. So I just identify as male. That's a
okay.
long-winded version of saying that.
No, it's all right. It's all right. No, it's good that you explain that because for a lot of people it is confusing, right? So I
Yeah.
definitely appreciate that. Now, you mentioned that there were times um, when you would go about your life and it felt very dark for you. Can you talk a little bit more about what that kind of looked like, how you felt um, when when you really weren't feeling so great, so to say?
Yeah, for sure. I remember when I was a lot younger, the first occurrence I had was my stomach would start hurting, and I started to say, "Oh, I can't go to school. I can't go to school. I have the stomach bug that's going
Mm.
around." And my mom would believe me because there was always a stomach bug going around when I would do it. Um, but I that was the first thing that happened, and that was my first sign. But I didn't realize it. I just thought I was sick a lot. And it wasn't until I reached probably high school age that I heard about the word anxiety, and that's when I realized from I was talking to a therapist at the time, and she told me, "Hey, like you've got some pretty serious anxiety issues," and I was like, "Okay, so how do I work on this? How do I make myself better?" And at that point, it really manifested as it got worse because I had ignored it. So at that time, I it was full blown. I couldn't breathe. I would be in my bed calling for my mom to take me to the hospital. And that's was my biggest mistake. Was I knew something was wrong, but I didn't talk about it, and I didn't let it get to that point, but it got to that point naturally.
Wow, yeah, I have dealt with a little bit of anxiety in the past, but definitely not to that extent. So I understand when you describe those types of feelings, it because I understand the fear in that, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's a really scary feeling.
Yeah, for sure. Not knowing why you're feeling like this, not knowing what's gonna happen. Of course, right? I would be afraid too.
Yeah, for sure. And it's equally as able to be managed too if you know the right tools.
Hmm. So now tell me a little bit more about when you transitioned and the support you got from your parents, because I know you mentioned that they were quite supportive of you, which I'm sure was a huge factor in it, right? So talk a little bit more about that.
So for me, I was raised in a very traditional family. My parents had gay friends growing up, but we weren't really super exposed to the community. So it was very isolating. And I'm from rural Ontario. So there weren't a lot of people who were out at that time, especially growing up. Um, so it was hard for me because I didn't even have the terminology. It wasn't talked about, out of sight, out of mind kind of deal.
Mm,
Um, so for me, I didn't know. I knew something, as I always put it, it felt like I was looking in the mirror and it wasn't me. It was almost like a stranger was in my body. Um, or I was in someone else's body. It was a very strange sensation. So I remember that feeling, and I remember talking to my friend about it. And my parents' reaction, honestly, was the best reaction anyone could have hoped for. They were loving, they were kind. They've been there since the start, and it helped a lot because I had my best friends to go to still. I had my family. I had people that I knew I could depend on no matter what, and who were advocating for me when I couldn't advocate for myself. So I think it was really essential. And like I said, even if it wasn't my family, I had friends at the time that would have advocated for me, even teachers would have advocated for me. So it's really important to get someone who's on your side.
wow, I love that. Yeah, nicely said. I definitely agree that having people there is a huge factor when you're going through anything that might be a little bit tough for you. But I'm sure there might have been some people who weren't as accepting. Were there?
I've had a few. I've had some intrusive questions, or mostly
Mm,
what I call them, where people pry a little bit too much into my personal life. And I've had those a lot. I was lucky enough that all my friends completely morphed with me and grew with me. I had a couple of friends that I had online who weren't as great about it, but at the end of the day, what I told myself to get through that was it's not my issue. It's not something wrong with me, and it's not something wrong with them either. It's just a difference in opinions. And unfortunately, that's the way it is in the world sometimes. And it's not a personal thing, it's just something they believe and I disagree with.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, for sure. No, that's a good way to put it. You know, when I hear your story, what always comes to my mind is I'm amazed on the level of acceptance you have for yourself. Like you when you tell this story, you're very confident. You're not ashamed of it. Was there ever a time when like you questioned if you actually knew it was the right thing? Like how did you come to the point where you could accept yourself for the way you are?
It took a lot. At first, especially before I could get on the medication I needed, um, I didn't really accept myself because I was still seeing the exact same thing that I saw before, except with short hair. Um, it was my first surgery that I got. And I remember after I was lying at home and I was thinking, was this the right decision? Did I do the right thing? I can't turn back now. So I hope it is. And it turned out it was the right decision for me. Um, that being said, not every person who identifies as trans needs surgery or wants surgery. And that's totally fine too. But for me, surgery was the route to go. But those first few days were rough because it was a lot of introspection and you don't have a lot to do after surgery. So you're kind of just stuck with yourself and your thoughts. And But what got me out of that was just knowing that it was a process, and being yourself in general is a process. I think no matter what your age, you're still growing into yourself.
For sure. Wow. Yeah. Thank you again, Alex, for joining us. And thank you all, our viewers, for tuning in to our episode of the Speak Real podcast. If you want to hear more stories, please subscribe, comment, and like. And join us next time. We will be airing a new episode every Thursday, same time, same place. And if you want to help support our Youth by Youth projects, visit us at youthspeak.ca, where you can donate and spread youth mental health awareness.